Hi, I'm Matt from Tubby Tarot. Welcome to Book Chat. Today I want to talk to you about my 5 tips on how you can start your own book collection. Now, if you go onto YouTube, I'm sure there are a lot of videos out there about book collections, but what I've found is that most of these videos are either collecting rare books, putting together a massive book collection for a library, all leather-bound stuff, very expensive stuff, putting together a collection of books that are basically just the classics or just this or just that. And I haven't yet come across a video that is specifically aimed at people like you and me. Normal folk that have got a couple of extra bucks at the end of the month, that just want to maybe buy a book here or a book there and add it to a collection and just see how our collection grows. And so I thought, let me give you 5 tips that I found have helped me start putting a book collection together. All right. Now, the very first thing you need to see or decide before you start even thinking about buying books is, what is your aim? So for instance, are you looking at collecting books of a certain genre? So are you going to only collect books on murders? Or are you going to be collecting books on mystery stories? For instance, Agatha Christie's and or P.D. James or anything like that. Or are you going to be collecting fiction or non-fiction? Are you going to be collecting a wide variety of anything? Are you going to be collecting a specific era? For instance, I collect Victorian novels, anything that's written in the Victorian era. And then some books that are written about the Victorian era. So there are all these different things you need to perhaps take into consideration before starting a book collection. Otherwise, it turns into a hodgepodge of all kinds of funny, weird stuff. And then at the end of a year, you've got all these books that some of them you might not have even read, and some of them you might have read and thought, nah, okay, doesn't resonate with me. So before you start wasting money on books that you've perhaps heard of, or friends have said, oh, it's so good, and you read it and it's shit, think about what you want to collect. What do you want to see on your shelves? Okay. Now, you need to decide, number 2, you need to decide on a budget. You can't just say to yourself, oh, well, you know, oh, there's a nice book, I'm going to buy it. Or go into Barnes & Noble and go, oh, there's a $400 book, or let me buy that. Or, you know, or go online and see a book. And you need to decide on a budget. It's like anything that you buy in life, any collection that you want to start. Decide on a budget, either a weekly budget or, as in my case, a monthly budget. Every month I budget X amount of money to spend on books. So for me, I have enough money to buy probably 3 new books over the internet. I buy all my books off a site called Loot, which is like the South African Amazon. And I know approximately how much the books cost, and I budget X amount per month to buy myself 2 or 3 new books. Now, I read a lot. I can read maybe 3, sometimes even 4 books in a month. To me, that's quite quick. I don't do speed reading. I find that's silly. There's another video coming up on that. But I read voraciously. I really do. I read a lot of stuff. And also I read Victorian stuff, so the English is not the same as, say, in a Stephen King novel. It's slightly different, so it's like you have to focus and concentrate a little bit more. So for me, 4, maybe 5 books a month is pretty good going. So I tend to only buy what I can afford in a month. If I'm having a bad month, I obviously won't buy as many books. Okay. Number 3, start small. You don't want to rush out and buy the entire Agatha Christie collection. It's going to cost you thousands. You don't want to rush out and buy every single J.K. Rowling book that she's ever written, or every single J.R.R. Tolkien book. Okay? You don't want to go out and buy huge, big, leather-bound copies of Dickens. All right? It's going to cost you big bucks. So what you do is start small. All right? Start with 1 book, but make it the best book that you can buy. Bearing in mind, that does not mean it has to be a brand new book. Okay? I would say 80% of the books I have on my shelf are secondhand books. All right? So start small, maybe one or two books of an author that you really resonate with, that you really like, all right? And go and look for secondhand copies. Make it the best copy that you can afford, all right? And you know what? If you can only afford a tatty fifth hand or sixth hand copy from a thrift store, so be it. At least you have that book in your collection. And perhaps later on, 3, 4, 5 years' time, when you've got the extra money and you love that book so much, you can then upgrade to a better copy, okay? As long as you can afford, as long as you add the best that you can afford, that's my advice to you, okay? Number 4, all right, look at charity shops, thrift stores, secondhand bookshops, not garden sales, garage sales. Look at hospice shops. Go and look at all these different places. You don't have to walk into your local exclusive books or Barnes and Noble to buy the latest and greatest books. All right? You don't have to buy new books. In fact, as I've just said to you, 80% of the books I have on my shelf are secondhand. And because a lot of the stuff I read are classics, they're relatively cheap. And it's a nice Jules Verne or an H.G. Wells or whatever. So again, looking at the genre that you're going to be buying or you're going to be collecting will depend on how expensive the books are. If you're going to start collecting really obscure stuff, then you are going to obviously pay a premium for that because it's not easily obtainable. Okay. And my final suggestion number 5, is there are so many people out there that say you have to read all the Jane Austen books because they are classics. You have to read every single Emily Bronte book because they are classics. You have to read Dickens and you have to read this person and that person just because they are the classics. No, no, no. You read what you like. I don't care about people saying to me, Matthew, you have to read P.D. James. I've read P.D. James. She's a fantastic authoress. I don't want to collect her books. To me, they're throwaway books. But you might love P.D. James. You might want to reread all her books, okay? So she would be a really, really good author to collect. Patricia Cornwell. A lot of people love Patricia Cornwell. I can't stand Patricia Cornwell. I wouldn't buy her books. But you might love it, and you might want to collect the entire series over a period of time. I've done this with Agatha Christie. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan. And at one stage, I had literally every single book that Agatha Christie had ever written. And that was the books that I liked. I would read, and reread those books. I wasn't just going to go and buy Emily Bronte's entire back catalogue because it's a classic. I don't like Emily Bronte. All right? I'm not a huge fan. So I'm not going to go and buy those books just because they are classics. And because if you haven't read those books, you are dumb or you are not a real book collector. Fuck that, man. I read what I want to read, and I suggest that you do exactly the same. Go and buy books that you put on your shelf, that you're going to collect, that you will read and reread, that resonate with you. And I'm not saying you're going to reread the same books every year, but have a book there that you know is a comfort to you. Make sure that all your books are books that you can return to at some stage and get something out of. Get some joy in actually reading them. Don't collect books just because somebody told you that they're classic or you've read somewhere that it's a classic book and you should. You know, there's all these things. 5 classics you need to read before you die. Balls to that. I don't have to read anything I don't want to, and neither do you. So start with your collection. Make sure that you start with books that you really, really like. Okay, those are my 5 tips. I hope they will come in handy, and I really do hope that you will start collecting books. Put a little collection of books together. It doesn't have to be a massive wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling bookshelf. It can be as small as a little cabinet in your room. Okay, one small shelf. Start with 5 books. Start with 10 books. Or you can start with 1,000 books if you want to. Okay, but whatever you do, start collecting books. I'm Matt from Tubby Tarot. You've been listening to Book Chat. I will see you next Thursday. Bye.